So today we're talking about the documentary series that you've been working on.
Yeah.
Of Black in America.
It's been a year.
Really?
Yes.
What's the experience been like? And talk a little bit about the whole idea, the concept, and what, I guess, the overall goal of the program is.
I thought it was very, the way it came to me was my bosses, Mark Nelson and John Klein, said, after I left the morning show, we want to do a documentary on African Americans in this country. Going to do Martin Luther King's assassination, and then the other two parts of this trilogy will be Black in America. And was I interested? And I was really interested, mostly because just no one really does that in a long form, in-depth, big budget kind of way. So I was very interested, but I discovered later, because I asked Mark, well, why this? Why did you guys come up with this idea? And it was the two of them, sort of feeling that the coverage of African Americans was kind of this deep. You saw a lot of black men in cuffs, as anybody in local news has covered and done, and definitely disproportionately to sort of the percentage of African Americans in the population, and yet it never really seemed to change. There was never an in-depth examination of what was going on. So the two of them really wanted to do more, and I think what happened was that they discussed it, and then they started doing research, and then they realized, wow, this is not a 5-minute piece, this is a 6-hour documentary, and so that's what we ended up tackling. And so I got in at the point of when they had a 6-hour documentary, and did I want to be part of it? And of course I said, yes, absolutely, not realizing that the next year of my life would be dedicated to it. But it's been fascinating personally, because I think a lot of the issues that we raise are issues that any person in this country who's black sort of grapples with. It's been so fascinating just get stopped on the street by people who say, well, one thing you got to put in this documentary, make sure you cover this. I mean, there's a woman who emailed me and talked about how she was stopped for shoplifting at a store somewhere around Gap or Old Navy, something around here, and she was saying how humiliating it had been. She wasn't shoplifting, and there was no evidence that she was shoplifting, and the people kept saying, well, we had some black girls in here last week who've been stealing things. And but it's not just about that incident. It's about who you are in this country. And so I'll see her tonight at this event, because I invited her. She's from here, and I invited her to come by, and we're going to write an article about her experience and more for our website. So it's been really, I think, as a journalist, amazing to have that opportunity to take your personal life experiences and others, put them through this filter, and then bring them to the public. I mean, it's great. It's really great.
How have your personal life experiences, if any, been able to add value to the reporting, or you have any experiences that sort of helped you in terms of tackling this project?
Yeah, I think so. I think that certainly I identify really well when it comes to talking to the people who are light-skinned Black Americans who feel that there's this measure of authenticity in your skin color. I think that when we interview our couples who are interracial and they talk, we did an interview with this couple, and I said, so how will you raise your children? They have a boy and a girl, little 4-year-old and 2-year-old. And the man said, any way they want. And the wife said, as black, at the same time. I said, oh, you're all going to need to get together on that. But I think that that's a real issue as the number of multiracial families grows. Here you have a kid who, to me, is clearly biracial. They're little children. But their dad doesn't necessarily see that. Their mom wants them to identify as being black. It raises new issues that, I grew up with, and I didn't have a problem because my mom and dad were like, you're black. That was just the way it was. And I think in the way that they were very clear about it, helped me be very clear about it in my head. So, it's been interesting to interview families where they're sort of going through a process that has been a little bit different from my own, but which I can fully comprehend.
Why do you think it's important for CNN or any news outlet to take a deeper look at some of the issues affecting, whether it be African American, but of course this country has, of course, such a oppressive, history. Why is it important now to take a look at some of the issues that we're facing and the history and also where we're going? Well,
it seems very unfair to me to only report on this much in Black America, which for the most part is crime, rap, and then I'd call the stellar people, the Condoleezza Rices and the Dick Parsons. And in a nutshell, you'd sort of say, if you were an alien watching,
or the Al Sharpton,
or you would say, wow, there are 10 people on TV.
Right.
6 of them are in cuffs. 3 of them are these over-the-top Supreme Court Justice, Secretary of State type folks. And then the rest are rappers. and I think that it's such an unfair image of Black America to Black people and to the rest of the country. But I think for Black people, I think, you see these young Black kids who sort of feel that what they've been shown is all that's open to them. One of the professors we talked to, Professor Roland Fryer, who's this Harvard economist, great guy, youngest tenured Black professor at Harvard, he's 30, got his tenure at Harvard.
Wow.
Gangbanger, grew up in poverty in Florida, Daytona Beach. And he said, what people don't understand is that, you want bling, be a dentist. Dentists afford a lot of bling. For white people, bling might be a really hot car. But there's a sense that the only way to get stuff, material possessions, a great car, chicks, whatever, is to be a rapper. Because that's what the media feeds people. And that's just not true. That's just not true. And so it's very disappointing, I think, that there's this very one-dimensional take on what's available, options available. And it's bad for young Black people, and it's bad for white people. And I don't want people to, when someone thinks that they're paying you the highest compliment, I don't think of you as Black. Well, why not? Because you don't think of achievement as Black? You don't think of good journalism as Black? That's not a compliment, really. I mean, if you think about your words, you're not really complimenting me. What you think of as Black is bad things. I know. I want people to think of me as Black because I represent good things.